Greetings, everyone. The communique of the fourth plenary session has been released. Prior rumors circulating about a new seven-member Central Military Commission, CMC, lineup, including claims of military representatives jointly demanding Xi Jinping's removal, have been proven false. The most significant personnel change, and the focal point of this plenary session, is the appointment of Jiang Shengmin as vice chairman of the CMC. Xi Jinping continues to hold his three major positions unchanged. Does this mean that the so-called anti-Xi faction is merely a fabricated myth, that no such faction exists, and that Xi Jinping remains firmly in control? My answer is clear. Not only is Xi Jinping far from holding absolute power, but this meeting further demonstrates that his military authority has been hollowed out. In the live footage broadcast by CCTV and within the communique itself, we observe the presence of several unusual figures and highly irregular information. When compared with previous communiques of a similar nature, the signs become even more apparent. Xi Jinping's signature political and economic policies, which have been consistent from the 19th to the 20th National Congress, have been noticeably altered or revised. Today, we will dive into a detailed discussion of the communique's contents and explore what conclusions can be drawn from it. It is October 23rd, Eastern Daylight Time, and I am Tang Jinyuan. Welcome, everyone. Let us use an objective perspective, logic, and common sense to uncover the truth behind the news. Let's begin with the most attention-grabbing and peculiar topic, the new CMC lineup. We have previously discussed a key concept multiple times, that the fourth plenary session might once again see a separation of Xi Jinping's titles from his actual power, a phenomenon observed with past leaders like Hua Guofeng, Deng Xiaoping, and Hu Jintao. Having a title does not necessarily mean wielding real power, and conversely, holding real power does not always require a formal title. Both scenarios exist. The new CMC lineup reveals that only Jiang Shengmin has been appointed as a vice chairman of the CMC. This move is logical in itself, as Jiang Shengmin has clearly been rewarded for his contributions. As the secretary of the CMC Discipline Inspection Commission, he has taken down at least 9 generals and possibly more, effectively dismantling Xi's loyalist Xi family army. Additionally, after Miao Hua's arrest, Jiang has been acting as the head of the political work department, essentially integrating into the political work system. Thus, Jiang Shengmin's elevation to CMC vice chairman restores the normal structure of the CMC, with one vice chairman overseeing military affairs and another overseeing political work. However, what is abnormal is that, according to the updated resume on the Ministry of National Defense website, Jiang Shengmin continues to hold his position as secretary of the CMC Discipline Inspection Commission while assuming the vice chairmanship. At the same time, his promotion has left 3 vacant seats on the CMC, and, astonishingly, not a single one has been filled. This raises a significant issue. Under normal circumstances, the new head of the political work department, succeeding Miao Hua, would be expected to join the CMC as a member. The fact that no new members have been appointed suggests that the substantial authority Jiang Shengmin wielded as the acting head of the political work department likely remains in his hands, untransferred. In other words, Jiang Shengmin, while serving as the CMC vice chairman overseeing political work, a county-level official, simultaneously retains control over the knife handle of the Discipline Inspection Commission and the personnel authority of the political work department. 2 highly powerful roles. This makes him a formidable figure, a true power holder within the CMC. As a result, the CMC not only maintains the previous 3:1 dominance of Zhang Youxia's faction over Xi Jinping, but sees an even greater weighting in favor of Zhang Youxia's faction, further hollowing out Xi's military authority. Xi Jinping, while retaining his titles on the surface, is in a situation reminiscent of Hu Jintao when he first became CMC chairman. Both vice chairmen belong to his adversaries, and he has no loyalists within the CMC, effectively making him a lone commander. Why has this unprecedented configuration of 3 leaders and 1 soldier emerged? The most straightforward interpretation is that the military purge is far from complete. Major cases, such as he Weidong's power grab, are still being investigated, and there may be concerns about implicating additional senior generals. For the sake of caution and stability, no new CMC members have been appointed for now. Some may disagree, arguing that Jiang Xingmin may not necessarily belong to Zhang Youxia's faction. As a native of Shaanxi, he could potentially be part of Xi Jinping's Shaanxi clique. Some even assert that there is no Xi-Zhang conflict and that Zhang Youxia is Xi's loyal confidant. Let me be blunt. While Xi Jinping retaining his CMC chairman title indicates he still holds some cards and leverage, denying the clear facts before us would be less than objective. First, the notion of Xi's Shaanxi clique in the military originates from Zhang Youxia himself, due to the familial ties between Zhang Youxia and Xi Jinping's father. Zhang Youxia was once a key figure in helping Xi consolidate military power, which gave rise to the Shaanxi Comrades label for Xi's loyalists. This label even briefly included Zhao Leji, another Shaanxi native, though it's now widely understood that Zhao is not part of Xi's camp. Zhang Youxia was indeed once a member of Xi's loyalist group and played a significant role in orchestrating a covert power maneuver at the 20th National Congress by altering the lineup at the last moment. However, this does not mean there is no Xi-Zhang conflict. Post-20th Congress, their relationship deteriorated into open rivalry, as evidenced by numerous facts and signs. Xi's purges targeting Zhang Youxia's faction, investigations into the Equipment Development Department, he Weidong's public marginalization of Zhang Youxia, and Zhang Youxia's open disregard for Xi at the two sessions, among others. We won't belabor these points further. This dynamic is almost standard in the CCP's political environment. Consider the relationship between Lin Biao and Mao Zedong. Mao enshrined Lin as his successor in the party constitution of the Ninth Congress. Yet just over 2 years later, Lin met his demise in a plane crash. Xi Jinping, aiming to emulate Mao's model of consolidating absolute power, is destined to follow Mao's pattern of burning bridges after crossing the river. Thus, she has systematically sidelined figures like Liu Yuan, Wang Qishan, Hu Jintao, and Zhang Youxia, individuals who once greatly aided him but were later seen as threats. Furthermore, 2 days before the fourth plenary session, the Ministry of National Defense bypassed standard procedures, preempting the Politburo and the plenary session by announcing the downfall of 9 of Xi's loyalist generals, forcing the plenary to retroactively endorse the move and compelling frontline party media to follow suit. While the plenary did ratify the decision, demonstrating the military's command over the party's highest authority, party media exhibited subtle resistance, with CCTV's Xinwen Lianhua notably omitting any mention of the purge. This underscores the ongoing rift and struggle between military and party authority, undeniable objective facts. We've discussed this principle before. The annihilation of 9 of Xi's loyalist generals deals a severe blow to his authority. If Xi had orchestrated this purge himself, he could have staggered the announcements to minimize the shock, as he did during his early anti-corruption campaign against Su Kaiho and Guo Buxiong's factions. Alternatively, he could have timed the announcement to coincide with the conclusion of the fourth plenary session and the release of the communique, which would have minimized the damage to his image. Take a concrete example from today's communique. It announced the expulsion of Zhang Fengzhong, a former alternate member of the 20th Central Committee and former director of the Political Work Department of the Rocket Force, with the rank of Lieutenant General. This was the first public disclosure of his downfall and expulsion. This highlights the issue. If Xi were truly in full control, he could have followed the same approach as with Zhang Fengzhong, safely concluding the plenary session and releasing the communique before announcing the purge, thereby demonstrating that it was his own initiative. Why, then, did he opt to announce the downfall of 9 generals just 2 days before the session, in a manner that violated standard procedure? Thus, Jiang Xingmin's elimination of 9 of Xi's loyalist generals, and, according to Kai Shinkowen's earlier reports, at least 4 additional Xi loyalist generals, confirms that this was not Xi's doing, but rather orchestrated by Zhang Youxia. Jiang Xingmin is indeed part of the Shaanxi clique, but he is not Xi Jinping's Shaanxi comrade, but rather Zhang Youxia's trusted ally within the Shaanxi clique. With this clarified, let's examine another critical and sensitive figure, Fang Yongxiang. Last April, Xi Jinping's staunch loyalist Zheng Xiaojun was transferred from the CMC General Office to serve as political commissar at the National Defense University. Fang Yongxiang, considered one of Xi's 3 key military lieutenants, alongside Qin Shengxiang, succeeded Zheng as director of the CMC General Office. This position, often described as the military overseer, is a critical role serving as the CMC chairman's eyes and ears in the military. It is a post reserved exclusively for the most trusted loyalists and a key indicator of whether she retains control over the military. However, in recent months, she attended celebrations in Tibet and Xinjiang, but Fang Yongxiang was conspicuously absent, failing to accompany Xi's protocol demands. This led many analysts to speculate that Fang Yongxiang may have already encountered trouble. The fourth plenary session communique reveals that 11 Central Committee members were appointed, but, contrary to convention, the appointments did not follow the order of votes received. Several individuals were skipped, including Fang Yongxiang. In my view, this strongly suggests that Fang Yongxiang is either on the verge of trouble or has already encountered it. In other words, with both of Xi's consecutive CMC General Office directors, his most trusted loyalists, facing issues, it's difficult to accept the claim that she still commands the military. Moreover, CCTV's Xinwen Lianbo footage revealed the mysterious presence of 2 highly sensitive figures at the fourth plenary session, both closely tied to Xi Jinping's actual standing in the military. The first is the highly sensitive commander of the Central Theater Command, Wang Chang, who appeared at the plenary session. What does this signify? It indicates that Wang Chang has not encountered trouble and may not even be under suspicion. Otherwise, as the commander of the highly sensitive garrison responsible for securing the capital, even the slightest hint of involvement in the Hemiao case would likely have barred him from attending the plenary session, pending internal review. This raises a significant question. According to protocol, Wang Chang should have served as the chief commander of the September 3rd military parade held a month ago. Instead, Han Xingyan, an Air Force commander from the Central Theater Command with the rank of lieutenant general, took the role. This was a clear demotion for Xi, sparking widespread discussion. The prevailing view at the time was that Wang Chang had likely been arrested or implicated, forcing the Central Theater Command to appoint a lieutenant general as a makeshift replacement. Yet we now see that Wang Chang is fine and was not appointed parade commander despite being in good standing. Why? One reasonable explanation is that Zhang Youxia deliberately humiliated Xi by downgrading his treatment, intentionally excluding Wang Chang from the role. Alternatively, perhaps Wang Chang fell ill on the eve of the parade, say, with severe diarrhea, rendering him unable to take the command vehicle, necessitating a last-minute replacement. Which explanation seems more plausible? Some might argue there's a third possibility. Wang Chang was under investigation at the time, but has since been cleared. Even if he were under investigation, the CCP could easily have had to make a brief appearance to dispel speculation and doubts, a routine tactic for the party. Why didn't they do so? Even if we take a step back and assume the authorities simply didn't want Wang Chang to make an appearance, what's the harm? Let's move on to another highly sensitive figure, Wang Kai, commander of the Tibet Military District. Yesterday's Xinwen Lianbo footage showed Wang Kai present at the plenary session. Wang Kai's sensitivity stems from his absence during Xi Jinping's visit to Tibet for a celebration, where he met with officers above the rank of colonel from the Tibet Military District. Only political commissar Yuan Hongyang was present. I recall being one of the first to report this news. Wang Kai hails from the 13th Group Army based in Chongqing, where he once served as commander. The 13th Group Army is considered a stronghold of Zhang Youxia, who also served as its commander. At the time, I discussed on my program the possibility that this was a deliberate move by Zhang Youxia to snub Xi by keeping his trusted ally from attending. However, many media outlets speculated that Wang Kai was likely under investigation. Now, we see Wang Kai is fine and attended the fourth plenary session. This is intriguing. In just a few brief shots from Xinwen Lianbo, we've identified two instances of Zhang Youxia's associates, individuals who should have appeared to support Xi but were inexplicably absent without reason. Could Wang Kai also have suddenly fallen ill with diarrhea? Or was he conveniently under investigation during Xi's Tibet visit? How could it be so coincidental? To be honest, I've lost count of how many such coincidences I've observed and discussed here. Without concrete evidence to prove these aren't coincidences, I can only say they're remarkably convenient. We seem to have stumbled upon an extraordinary number of them. Returning to my earlier point, I believe the appearances of Wang Chang and Wang Kai further confirm Zhang Youxia's public humiliation of Xi Jinping. If anyone insists that Xi's retention of the CMC chairman title alone proves he commands absolute military authority, I find that argument unconvincing. The facts I've observed lead me to the opposite conclusion. Beyond military authority, comparing this plenary session's communique with previous ones reveals even more irregularities. First, this plenary session marks the conclusion of the 14th five-year plan and the launch of the 15th five-year plan. Let's compare it with the 5th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee, which concluded the 13th five-year plan and initiated the 14th. In the 19th 5th plenary session communique, the phrase centered on a critical expression of policy direction appeared only once, stating centered on the people. In today's communique, the same phrase appears only once, but it has shifted to centered on economic construction. As is well known, since Xi Jinping consolidated absolute power, the reformist mantra of centered on economic construction vanished, replaced by phrases like centered on the people or centered on political security. The so-called centered on the people is essentially a rephrased version of centered on the people's democratic dictatorship. Indeed, Xi's actions reflect this, with moves toward a cultural revolution 2.0, nationwide spy hunts, and mass struggles. This shift is highly significant. The reappearance of centered on economic construction as the sole such expression in the 4th plenary session communique clearly indicates that Deng Xiaoping's reformist faction has gained the upper hand in economic policy, overturning Xi's line. Due to time constraints, we won't delve into the communique's other economic discussions today. Let's move on to a major political anomaly. Following the 20th National Congress, Xi Jinping reached the pinnacle of his power, sweeping aside all other factions and achieving true dominance. Comparing the communiques of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th plenary sessions of the 20th Central Committee reveals fascinating insights. In the 2023 2nd plenary session communique, the opening paragraph boldly omitted Marxism-Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, Deng Xiaoping theory, the important thought of the three represents, and the scientific outlook on development, retaining only comprehensively implementing Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. The audacity was palpable. By the 3rd plenary session last year, following Xi's health scare, the communique's tone shifted dramatically. It reinstated the full lineup of CCP ideological pillars, from Marxism-Leninism to the scientific outlook on development, placing them before Xi's thought. However, it still included a nod to thoroughly studying and implementing General Secretary Xi Jinping's new ideas, perspectives, and judgments on comprehensively deepening reform, maintaining a relatively high regard for Xi, albeit toned down. This year's communique follows the same pattern of listing the ideological pillars, but shifts the follow-up to thoroughly implementing the spirit of the 20th National Congress and previous plenary sessions of the 20th Central Committee. Don't underestimate these wording changes, as they reflect the true evolution of Xi Jinping's political standing. While the communique still includes the 2442 framework, that's merely a continuation of convention. The focus should not only be on what remains, but also on what has unexpectedly appeared. As I shared exclusively yesterday, the party elders are clearly adopting a gradual approach to preserve the party, slowly weakening and sidelining Xi Jinping in a process akin to an extended Hua Guofeng model. It's not impossible that they plan to drag this out until the 21st National Congress for a legitimate transition. We've long said that while the elders may have their plans, Xi Jinping is no Hua Guofeng. He will fight ruthlessly to the end, confident in the cards he holds. If the elders think they can steadily prolong the CCP's lifespan, I can only say they may face a far fiercer storm. Let's wait and see.